Well, hello everyone. Today we're going to deal with the topic from chapter 6, which is essentially how do you multiply polynomials together. So before we go through the main ones, let me show you some skill building exercises that we need to be aware of. If you multiply two different powers of x, say x squared multiplied by x cubed, what you do is you add powers together, and the answer is x to the power of 5. Not 2 times 3 is 6, x to the 6, but 2 plus 3, x to the 5. And you could think of it like this. X squared is just a shorthand way of saying x times x. Now you're going to multiply it by x cubed, which is a shorthand way of saying x times x. And if you look at this, you see how there's 5 x's all multiplied together, x to the 5. Now, if you add numbers, so it's 4x squared times 5x cubed, as we have here, then what you do is you multiply the numbers together. So 4 times 5 gets you 20. And then you add the powers. And so the answer would be 20x to the power of 5. We're going to be doing a lot of multiplication of variables, and so that we have to be aware of these properties. And the main one is this one here, that when you multiply two powers of x, you add the powers together. And the second rule is that when there's number attached to each power, you multiply the numbers together to get 20, and then you add the x's, the powers of x together, in this case to get x to the 5. So now that we've got that under our belt, let's look at the first kind of questions, which are the distributive law. Now, the distributive law is a name that we give to questions where you go like this, say 2x squared, x cubed plus 5. And so if you want to multiply 2x squared by the expression x cubed plus 5, the distributive law says that what you can do is you can take the 2x squared, multiply it by x cubed plus 2x squared multiplied by, in this case, 5. Now, x squared and x cubed gets you 2 to the power of 5. And 2 times 5, 10, with an x squared at the end. And we're finished. In this case, there are no like terms, so we really can't do too much. Let's do a version, let's say something like question 3. And so it's negative 4y squared, 4y, take away 7y squared. So I'm going to use the distributive law. So negative 4y squared times this guy, and negative 4y squared times this second guy. So let's see what that looks like. Negative 4y squared times 4y. And this guy times this guy. So you could write that in a number of ways. I would probably take care of the signs and realize that a negative something times another negative something gets me 4. It gets me plus, I should say. And then we can write down the 4y squared times the 7y squared. And that plus that gets you y cubed, and that times that gets you negative 16. And 4 times 7 gets you 28, and y squared times y squared gets you y to the 4. And that's as good as the answer's going to get. Again, in this question, there are no like terms to be combined. So our answer is that. Y cubed and y to the 4. I know they both contain the variable y, but they contain different powers. So as far as we're concerned in math, that this thing and that thing are different. So you can't add these to these and get any meaning. They are separate items, just like 16a and 28b, right? You can't do any more of them. You can only add x squareds to x squareds and y cubes to y cubes and so forth. So let's try a version of question 4, where we're going to take negative 4ab and multiply that into 5a take away 7b. So this guy times that guy is going to be first. So it's negative 4ab times 5a. And this guy times this guy, I like to take care of the sign right away. So negative times negative means it's plus. And then it's going to be 4ab times a 7b. Now, after a while, this line here can be skipped by many people. But right now, I'm keeping it. So 4ab times 5a, well, we get a negative, we get 20. I have an a and another a, so they get me a squared, and I have a b left over. So negative 20 a squared b is what you would get if you multiplied this term by that term. Now these two get you 7 times 4 is 28. This is a, this is b, this is another b. So when you combine these all together, you get a single a and a b squared. And those two, although they look similar, you can't combine them because they're not identical. This has an a squared b, this has an ab squared. They are not allowed to be combined because they do not contain exactly the same combinations of powers of a and b. Well, let's look at a question where you actually do get some like terms that you can combine. So this time we've got 3b plus 4b, 3 take away b. Now, a question like this, you have to identify which ones the distributive law is going to be with and which ones nothing special is going to happen. This 3b is on its own. It's not multiplied by anything. I'm not going to combine it to anything. It's just 3b. Now, if I cover that up, this here is your distributive law. So you're going to go 4b times this guy, and then 4b times that guy. So 4b times 3 gets you 12b, and 4b times negative b gets you negative 4b squared. Now, once we've done the distributive law, there are no more brackets. What I do notice is that this guy and this guy are like terms. So I can have 3 add 12, which is 15b, take away 4b squared, and that's us finished. So let's do a version of 8. We have negative 5y, 3 take away y, plus 5y squared. Now, here is the distributive law. Negative 5y times 3 is negative 15y. Negative 5y times negative y gets you a positive. The 5 and the y and the other y get you positive 5y squared. And this guy here, he's still 5y squared. Now, in this particular question, these two can be combined. And so I now have negative 15y plus 10y squared. Okay, let's move on then. Look at an example, question 11. We're still using the distributive law, but in question 11, what we're dealing with is two variables, a and b, in this case 3ab squared, and then in the brackets, a 3a squared, a negative 2ab, plus a 6b squared. Now, according to the distributive law, I'm going to do those two multiplied, and then lastly, those two multiplied. So 3a, make sure you write this one down, I think. 3ab squared times 3a squared. That's going to get me 9. The a's are going to get me a cubed, and the b squared is left. So that's the first one. Now the middle one, well, that guy times that guy is going to be negative, and it's going to be 3ab squared times 2ab. So what I did is I just took care of the sign. If it's plus, I'll put a plus there. If I know it's going to be negative, I'll put the negative. That way I only need to focus on this stuff. Well, 3 times 2 gets you 6. A times A gets you A squared. And B squared times B gets you B cubed. So that's that one. Now, if you go for the last one, it's positive because this is positive, so is that. So it's positive 3ab squared times 6b squared. 3 times 6 is 18. A is on its own. And b squared times another b squared is b to the 4. And that's our final answer. Okay, now we're going to look at 2 more situations, a little bit more complex. We're going to look at FOIL. So FOIL, F-O-I-L, that's used when you have a calculation where you don't have one set of brackets, like a term times a bracket, but 2 separate brackets. So you might have 3x plus 2, 2x minus 1. And so if you see a situation, 2 terms in a bracket times 2 other terms in a bracket, you're going to do what we call FOIL. And it gets its name, well, let me tell you what it gets named for by putting it down here. F is for first, O is for outer, I is for inner, and L is for last. So this is a little mnemonic to try and help you figure out the order that you're going to do stuff. So first means 3x times 2x, okay? So that's going to be the F of my FOIL. So it's going to be 3x times 2x, and that gets me 6x squared, and that is the F from FOIL. Now, outer means the outside ones. That's this one and this one. So the outer, the O, is the 3x times the negative 1. So I know the answer to that is negative 3x. I don't need to write down calculation. Right, 3x times negative 1 is negative 3x. Now, we have the inner, and the inner is these 2 guys, right, the inside ones. And again, I don't really need to write multiplication because 2 times 2x is 4x. And we call these guys the inner. Right. Last is the last one times the last one. In this case, a plus 2 times a negative 1 gets me negative 2. So there's the F, the O, the I, the L. That's where FOIL comes from. Now, not all the time, but a lot of the time, you will be able to get some terms that can be combined. So negative 3x and plus 4x can be combined. And what you end up with is negative 1x. We don't write the 1, we just write negative x, take away 2, and we are finished. We call that process FOIL. And so it's a way of multiplying 2 sets of brackets together. Do another question with FOIL. Suppose I had 5a plus 2 and 4a minus 3. Look at that. I'm going to go F, O, I, and L. FOIL. 5a times 4a gives me 20a squared. That's the F. Now, if you do the outside, it's 5a times negative 3. I'm just going to do that in my head. If you do the inside, it's a positive 2 times a positive 4a. That's 8a. And then the last one is a positive 2 times the negative 3, and you get that. So what you're looking at is F, the O, the I, the L. And you notice that these two can be combined. So you have 20a squared minus 7a minus 6. And that is FOIL. First, outer, inner, last. And so we're now moving on to the last situation. So there's only a couple of these, and you're going to keep the best till last. And these are when you're being asked, let's do two examples, a version of question 12, where you're being asked to multiply this rather long expression. It's like an extension to FOIL, but it doesn't have a name like FOIL has a name. But what you're essentially going to do is multiply all these three terms by these two. That really means you're going to have 6 things when you're finished, right? So I'm going to go ax squared times 3 and times negative 8. So that's the first two guys I'm going to do. So it's going to be ax squared times 3x. It's this one. And then it's going to go negative 8x squared times 8. Then I'm going to move to this guy. And he's going to go and multiply those two guys as well. And so what we're going to get this time is an x times a 3x, and then x times negative 8, which I'm just going to call negative 8x. And then you think we're finished, but we're not quite, because what we're now going to do is this guy times these two. And what that gives us is 1 times 3x, which I'm just going to call 3x, and 1 times negative 8, I'm going to call negative 8. Now I've got a couple that I didn't do, so let's finish these off. 8 and 3 is 24x cubed. 8 and 8 is 64x squared. X and 3x gets me 3x squared. And I'm just rewriting the other terms because they were pretty easy to do. Now at this point, you're almost finished, but not quite. What you need to do now is collect like terms. Well, there's only one x cubed, so there's nothing I can do about that. But these two guys, they can be combined, and you end up with negative 61 x squared, because negative 64 add 3 gives you negative 61. Then you have these two guys, and that gets you negative 5x. And lastly, you've got the number negative 8, and there was nothing to combine it with. So this is us finished. And you are not finished until you've combined like terms. So if you wrote this line here down, a WebAssign would say you're not correct because you haven't finished the process. Once you've combined all like terms, as I've done here, then you are finished. So the last one is question 13. And question 13 is even uglier than the one we've just done. It's this guy times that guy. Start off with the first one, that's this fella, and he's going to multiply those two guys. So write down what that gets me. I get a negative 4x squared multiplied by a 4x. And I have a negative 4x squared times a negative 3. Well, two negatives make the answer positive. And 4x squared times 3, I can do that in one go. So you get positive 12x squared. Now, if we move to, say, the middle term, you're going to do these two guys. And you could do them in my head, I think. 4x times another 4x is positive 16x squared. And 4x times negative 3 is negative 12x. And then last would be this guy times him and this guy times him. So 2 times 4 gets you positive 8x, and 2 times negative 3 gets you negative 6. Now, if you have 3 things in the first bracket and 2 things in the second, there will be 6 pieces to your answer, 6 terms, right? 3 things, times two things always generates 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That way I can check I haven't missed something. Right, let's tidy this up. Negative 16x cubed. And actually, everything else was so easy that I just did it as the multiplications occurred. Now, combining, these two combine, and these two guys combine. So I'm going to have negative 16x cubed. That guy plus that guy gets you 28x squared. And that guy gets you negative 4x, take away 6. And we are finished.